Show and Tell Saturday once again. Who wants to see a weird item? I'm sure you do. Well, here is today's weird item. It is a Super Game Boy. As you can probably tell by the fact that it says Super Game Boy on it. A lot of you may have heard of this thing, but for those who haven't, well, you're one of today's lucky 10,000. This is designed so that you can plug it into your SNES. Right? And then you can get your Game Boy game in its totally original box. Maybe I'll talk about these in a future episode. And you can put it in the console. Ta-da! And then you can turn your Super Famicom on, as I am demonstrating with here. And you can play your Game Boy games on the telly. It's quite hilarious. Well, I don't know if it's hilarious particularly, but it is a fascinating curio and an interesting piece of video game history. You see, handhelds, right? Handhelds are meant so you can play them on the go, and they are severely, severely cut down versions of... Well, I think that's a bit unfair, actually. They are cut down. Or at the time the Game Boy was a thing, they were very cut down from their home console contemporaries. For example, you compare Super Mario World to Super Mario Land, the experiences are just night and day. I mean, still both great games, no doubt, but one of them you got to play on a nice big colour screen, and it was smooth and it was fast and you got a nice controller to play it with, and the other one you had to play on a brick and it had no light and it was all green and very, very smeary and you couldn't really tell what you were doing. This was the solution. If you, for some reason, wanted to play the cut-down experience of a Game Boy game, but on your big telly with a SNES controller, then this was the answer. This was actually the thing that you had to get. So I understand that it's actually got pretty much the entire Game Boy guts inside of this. So this is effectively a Game Boy. It's just interfacing with the Super Famicom to well, it adds a few extra features, and of course it needs it to output the video signal. What extra features, you might ask? Well, first of all, it puts your games in colour. Now, it's a little bit limited because Game Boy games were not designed with colour in mind, so it kind of just makes it up. There are some games, I mean, this doesn't work with Game Boy Color games, but there are some latter-day Game Boy games which were designed with the Game Boy Color in mind, so they would have some level of programming to add colour to them. I'm not sure of any off the top of my head, but I happen to know that this one, Galaga and Galaxian, well, it actually looks a bit like the arcade games, and is actually a fantastic conversion. It's really nice to play on the SNES, in fact. I don't know of a better version of Galaga for SNES. Off the top of my head, there might be one that I've just not come across. But yeah, it does resemble the arcade game when you do that. And it's the same with Space Invaders for Game Boy. That's a very interesting case because if you put Space Invaders for Game Boy into a Super Game Boy, into your SNES, it actually resembles the SNES version of Space Invaders more so than the Game Boy version. You can play both versions. It's got a few bits missing because it's on a Game Boy cartridge and not a SNES cartridge, so it's going to be a bit different. But you've got the key bit, which is Space Invaders, and it's very much arcade accurate, that version, when you put it into this. So that's really fascinating. Again, I don't know of any other games that turn into a different game when you put it into the Super Game Boy. So it's really, really fascinating, this thing, and I really should do more research on it. I do happen to know that there is a second version of this, naturally called the Super Game Boy 2. It's translucent blue, which is already awesome, and again, no idea what it does, other than just does the Game Boy things but better. There are certain games that don't run on the original grey Super Game Boy that will run on the 2, and I think it just performs better, and there's I want to say there's like borders you can add and there's more colour options and things. Yeah, it really is an interesting thing, this, and I would love to explore it some more, just because, for me, if you're going to play Game Boy games and you don't have a nice backlit console like you can do now, well, this is the next best thing, isn't it? I suppose, other than playing it on, for example, an Analog Pocket or a PSP or something. Yeah, but that's not the only item like this, because I believe there was some sort of converter you could get for the Master System, the Sega Master System, that allowed you to play Game Gear games on it, because they were virtually the same thing inside. And the GameCube actually had this, but for the Game Boy Advance. So you attached to the bottom, and you had to have a special disc to play it. And you could play GBA games on your GameCube. And again, really great way to play GBA games, especially things like, the likes of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and other quite long-form games, the big RPGs and stuff that were on the GBA. Great way to play them. And really, the GBA had the same problems in that you couldn't see the screen because it wasn't backlit and it was very, very smeary. So yes, brilliant device this, despite the fact that it's a very odd device, and I like it a lot, and it's a really nice way of playing Galaga on my SNES. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow. That could have gone better. Let me try that again.